Rob, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time for all this.
It's my pleasure, completely.
We've been hanging out since yesterday, and I feel like I know you already.
Yeah, I feel like your uncle.
No,
older brother.
Yeah,
much older brother.
Like I mentioned before, you are one of my main influences. I mean, we look at things similarly, and I've been heavily influenced by your playing.
Oh wow! Okay,
and also, it's a time to redeem myself for playing so many of the stuff that you play online while doing Premiere guitar videos.
Wow, okay.
I get to take this weight off my shoulder now that I can share it with the world. Thank you.
I'm just glad someone's watched them.
Many people have watched
them.
Oh,
wow, and, that's nice.
How's life, first of all? How are you doing?
Great, yeah, really good. I mean, what a treat this is to come over here and get to meet some new people and get to play. And any day I wake up and I'm playing guitar, life's good.
You've been very busy also.
Yeah, it's been a busy year, really full on. We're doing a new Jamiroquai record at the moment, so that amongst the other things that I do, and it's just great. I never dread Monday. It's always good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a blessing to be able to say that even though you're working, it doesn't always feel like work, you know.
No, the work bit is sometimes it's the travel, it's the tiring bit, you know, but I still really, I get like, oh, I'm playing guitar today. I still have that, you know, so it's a great thing.
And with so many great musicians all around the world, and especially guitarists, because it's no secret that there's a bunch of great guitarists.
Amazing guitar players.
To be busy as a professional guitar player and super busy as a professional guitar player is something that somewhat shouldn't take for granted, and it's also, you know, it means that you're doing something right?
Yeah. I mean, I've always had the ethos of I say yes. I always grew up saying yes to anyone called me. I'm like, yeah. Usually the last thing I ask or think about is, am I getting paid? Because I usually just want to play. You know, I want to. I know that sounds probably a little bit twee, but I just love playing. You know, so even when I'm doing tours, if I get home on a Thursday, on a Friday, I'm going out to play in a little bar. You know, and I've always had that thing. It's not. Yeah, I need to get paid, but actually, most of the time, I just want to play.
What turned you on to the sport in the first place? Because this is something that I don't know.
Playing guitar. I grew up in a house. I've got an older brother and sister. There was a lot of music in the house. And I think one of my early memories was watching a show called Top of the Pops. And just seeing people on, it was a music show that was on in the UK once a week. And it was when all of the bands, it'd be like the top 20. They would put the top 20 songs on. And you'd see the people on TV, you know, dancing around. Everyone's having a great time. And I just was drawn to the guitar. And I remember, you know, I don't even know how I did it, but, you know, I'd get a biscuit tin, and I would stretch an elastic band on it and just twang, make the sound. And I knew my father had a guitar in the attic, in the loft. And I just hounded him. I was about 7 years old. Please, can I? And I still remember it. It was a couple of days. I was just being a pain in the arse. And can you go and get the guitar? Please, Dad, go and get the guitar. And he went up into this hole in the ceiling, just a dark hole. And I just heard this splang. He just got the guitar and just strummed the strings and then presented it in the hole. And it was like, and it's his old Hofner. He had an old Hofner guitar, which I still have, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So this was the first milestone that you remember from when your relationship with the guitar started. But when was it when it clicked and you know that this was what you're going to do for a living?
I think I was just instantly. That's what I wanted to do.
So you never thought about doing anything else?
No. It was when I grew up in the Middle East, and I grew up in Qatar. So all we had, it was probably a good thing. All we had was when we moved there, you would get VHS videos of Top of the Pops. So you'd have maybe 3 episodes that you could watch over and over again. You wouldn't get the regular programming because we didn't have it up there. So I probably just watched that a lot. And for the first year or two, I actually played the guitar completely wrong. I had the guitar laying flat on my lap, and I used to play it with one finger. And I would pick out melodies that I could remember, and I'd play it all on one string until that finger hurt. Then I'd switch to the next finger, and that's all I thought about and all I did. I used to draw guitars at school, and I wanted an electric guitar, and my parents waited a while before I got, it was Christmas. I got this. To me, it was the best thing ever, but it was actually made out of the worst wood. The body was super thin, and the pickups. It was just like a toy guitar almost, but it was an electric thing that I could plug in, and I was in straight away. That's what I wanted to do.
So you knew. You knew early on.
And then we came back from the Middle East in 1983. So I was
back to the UK.
Back to the UK. Yeah. And my parents got me guitar lessons with a local teacher. I live near Cambridge. There was a local teacher called Colin Medlock. And I've mentioned this loads of times, but I think it was quite important to me because on my second lesson, he was late to the lesson. I was 12, 11 or 12. He was late to the lesson, and he came in. He was in a fluster, This is out in Cambridgeshire. So he explained, "I'm sorry, I'm late. I've been at a session today in London, and I was late because there was a guitarist in the next studio called Alan Murphy who was recording, and I just had to watch him. I was allowed to go in. So my first question was, what's a session? What is it? So he explained it's where you go in and you get to play on people's records, and that's probably when I went, that's what I want to do.
Okay.
I was in from there. I was like, what, you can make a living doing this? Okay. I mean, I was 12. I didn't know what making a living was, but that's all I wanted to do is play on records. And then from that, I started the journey of discovering what that looked like and who did it. I started listening to people like Larry Carlton and Steve Lukather. And before I even listened to Jimi Hendrix, I'd heard those other people first.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were drawn into the world of the professional musician.
Yeah.
Not only the guy who imagines himself as a rock star in the future, but the person who actually makes a living out of playing.
Yeah.
Out of, in my eyes, you're one of the ultimate session musicians. Like I said, you're one of my major influences. And but because you have the ability to sit in the pocket so directly and immediately, I mean, this is your bread and butter, what you're doing, especially with the funk stuff, not only with the funk stuff, but when did you find yourself actually becoming an expert when it comes to groove and pocket?
I'll tell you when I eventually have that. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I spent a lot of time playing along to records. So, from that early days, I didn't do it thinking I'm going to go and make a load of money. What the point is I want to be able to go into a work situation where I get to play on new music. And I think it's solving problems like, being presented with new music to play all the time, and how do I fit in the record? How do I make the track? How do I get involved? So I think I did my first ever session when I was about 14.
Oh, right.
I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. But I do remember being in the studio. I was with a bunch of I was playing, I've been asked to go and record with this band. And I'm making it sound glamorous, like I'm in Nashville or something. It wasn't. In England, it's, when I started doing it, when I was old enough to realize there's, session musicians, it's very hard to, there's not a lot of work around. So, but I remember being in the studio and watching someone on the mixing desk, and there's these buttons, and there's a solo button on each channel. And that's, when I realized that's what it was, it scared me to death. Because I realized, oh no, if you solo my guitar part, what if everyone stops dancing and nodding their head? So that was when I kind of realized I better be in time. I better make what I'm playing feel good. I don't want people to stop tapping their feet when it's just me.
Oh, right.
So that was quite an important thing. So maybe it's that realization. But playing along to records and imagining when I was a kid that I was the guy in the band, that's what I did every day after school. That's all I did. You know, I'd get a new album, put it on, and I would pretend, you know, in my schoolboy fantasy that the band is playing and the guitarist is sick and they needed someone to stand up and I'd be, I can do it, sir.
Okay.
And I used to do that.
Normally, most people, I think, when they're growing up as teenagers, have this idea of themselves becoming the star of the show when we were kids, expecting when the time for the solo is coming and everybody would be, the attention would be gathered on us. But you were always imagining you fitting in the band and serving the song and being able to contribute to people dancing, as I understand it.
And
boy, have you done so.
Well, I've been very fortunate, but I remember, back in, when I was younger, there was a lot of, they'd always have these concerts on TV. It would be the Prince's Trust concert, or there'd be these huge, where all the main bands played, but they'd have a house band. And there was always a guitar player that played. He was always on stage. It was a guy called Phil Palmer. I don't know if you know Phil Palmer.
Heard of him.
He would always be the guy that was always there. So, you've got Mark Knopfler and Eric Clapton and people up the front. Phil Palmer was always there playing. He'd be on for every song. And I always wanted to be the guy that was always on for every song, which meant, he didn't do the solos. He's just there playing. I just thought, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've been with Jamiroquai for 23 years now, I think.
Since 1999 I joined,
23 years. It's been a long ride, huh?
It's been a long ride.
And, the Jamiroquai gig is something demanding regarding the traveling, regarding, the fact that you're playing with other amazing musicians.
Yeah.
And also, it's quite a versatile gig.
Yeah.
And, how do you balance between all the different stuff that you have to play in an environment like that?
It's the good thing is it's a really solid band. The rhythm section is super solid, so that makes it kind of easy. There's some things where you have to play quite delicate parts. There's some stamina involved where you're playing. There's a lot of 16th notes flying around for a long time. And then it can get there's some heavy stuff that happens as well. Certain songs you're playing, like High Times or Deeper Underground, they can get quite heavy. And I think that's maybe why I got the gig with the band, because Jay wanted someone who could cover that as well, and it's just being able to do that. And then you'll go from that to doing like a Latin tinge tune, so it's having that. Probably I just listened to a lot of that stuff. Growing up, I listened to a lot of stuff. So
this is exactly what I meant when I said that the diverse part of it is the fact that when you have to play the Latin stuff, of course, this is a whole genre of people who are doing this, only this. So what I meant was, you do not have to be an expert on the Latin stuff, but you do have to know how to pretend. Pretend in quotes. To be able to support what you're doing at the time. So
I think that comes from listening a lot. I wouldn't profess to know, I love that music. I listen to it a lot. I don't know the deep core of it. I'd love to do that, but I do believe that having it around, it means you can kind of borrow bits from it and then put it in a different setting sometimes, and you get this mesh of things that you don't normally get. It's just having big ears, to listen to stuff and absorb it,
And having spoken to you for quite a few hours now, I understand that you're open in general in listening to different styles, and you're not, you're down for anything.
Yeah.
You want to experience it before you decide if you like it or not.
Yeah.
That's it.
And there's always something to like in everything. I think that, you can take something from it. And I love doing that. I love going, why don't we... And fortunately in Jamiroquai, it's open. It's an open door for that. If you want to try something nuts, he's up. He wants to hear that.
Okay.
He might not always like it, but at least you go. You can tell very quickly if he's not feeling it. You go, yeah, okay, and just leave your ego there, and don't worry. But it's great that it's an open door for that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when you guys play live, because there's a fan base that is really dedicated to Jamiroquai.
Yeah.
And do you find that you get to perform the songs differently? It's an organic process. I mean, you do not have to stick to the record like 100%. So each time you get to excite each other on stage by trying different things.
We have. I mean, it's the great thing about the band. It's quite a big band, but it's a very organic thing. We have to watch Jay. It's an old school thing. You have to watch the singer like a hawk, because he will want to change things on a hairpin.
Okay.
We had a scenario in South America. We were playing a song called Dynamite, right? It was when we were touring Dynamite. We're in South America somewhere, and we were walking up the ramp to the stage, to this big festival, and he decided that he wanted to put a new section in the song.
Okay.
And he sung it to us, a riff, just sung. I can't remember what it was, but he was like, I want, after the second chorus, we all hit this riff. And he sang it to us.
On stage?
As we're walking to the stage.
As you're walking on the stage, to the stage, right.
And that song wasn't until it's probably the fifth song in the set.
Okay.
So we all had to remember that riff. And you're in front of a large audience, maybe 14,000 people or something. And you all have to be on the thing. You're having to remember it, even though it's the fifth song in the set, that after the second chorus, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And we all play it, and we don't know how long we're going to do it for, but he will say, watch me, and then we'll go back to the next section. And that is, I find that exhilarating. Scary, but, and that can happen on any night.
Keeps you sharp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes there's some train wrecks, but sometimes there's some happy accidents that will happen, and it'll go, that was really good, do that again tonight,
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's great.
Awesome.
It's good.
When did you started getting big on gear? I know that you're the person who prefers to. You're not lost in the gear world. I mean, you use gear. Gear doesn't use you.
Yeah.
But when did you finally decide that this is what I'm leaning towards more than other things?
I've always kind of had this thing of I'll use whatever I need to get it done, and I like to have gear around me. I mean, in my studio at home, I've got lots of amps and lots of guitars and lots of pedals, and it's a trial and error thing of, no, that's not working, let me try this. But I like to work really quickly, so having stuff around me means I can get stuff happening. So, yeah, I've been through that process of buying the amp that I think is going to do everything, getting the thing that's got the 4 channels, and it kind of does everything well, but not like the actual amp that you're trying to do. So I realized that if I wanted a Marshall sound, I better have a Marshall, and if I wanted a Fender sound, I better have, a deluxe reverb, and the studio I always think is different to live, so I'm kind of flexible with all that stuff. Yeah. I'm just as happy playing with an amp and a lead. I toured for years with Sister Sledge. So whenever they come over from the States to Europe, they would book myself and Paul Turner on bass. And all I used to take was a headstock tuner and an overdrive pedal. That's the only thing I took for the gig. People are like, what's your rig? That. Because most of the time I'm playing clean, and then there's a few solos. I didn't need delay or anything like that. It's just, yeah.
So in the studio, you still use your amps and you use amps in general, but you take advantage of technology nowadays to make touring and carrying stuff around easier.
Yeah. I've been using modeling for, I switched a few years back out of necessity, really. Especially in the studio with Jamiroquai, you have to work very quickly. If there's an idea, it needs to be done. You can't go, I've had an idea, let's move the amp and can we try a different mic? There's no time for that. It's idea. And I learned that on the very first album I did. the first album I played on was the Funk Odyssey album, and I took my amps, and they sat there in the live room. I realised very quickly that I needed to work. Here's the idea: get it down as quickly as possible. So, a lot of that album was either guitar DI'd with no amp. The song Little L, for example, is just my thin line telly plugged straight into a preamp, straight into Pro Tools or Logic at the time it was. And then I had a Line 6 pod. So Love Philosophy was a Line 6 pod.
Yeah.
He wants it quick. Great. He wants to keep the excitement going in the studio, and there's no time for messing around. Oh, I think the valve's gone in my deluxe. It doesn't work like that. He wants the ideas to come really fast. So I think that taught me that's when I go to a session, I need everything in case it's needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything ready for you to plug and play.
And whatever gets the idea down the best. If someone wants to spend time and let's mic this up and let's do it all properly, I'm completely up for that as well. But I think the ideas are more important than the gear. They should be, for me anyway.
Yeah, I remember seeing a post of you mentioning something about I think an Instagram story or something where you were showing a pod.
Yeah.
And you said that you actually recorded on this.
I used that on a lot of things. Back in the day, yeah.
So live, you're
Yeah.
mostly a Strat style guy, right?
Yeah.
And you also have a signature right now.
I do, yeah. It's just out. It's by a guy called Patrick James Eggle. He makes really fine guitars, and so I've been playing. I play whatever is needed for the gig. So my main Strat for many years was an old Japanese vintage Squire, which I bought in a shop for about £140. It's barely the guitar, the original guitar anymore, because it's had a new neck and new pickups. It's a complete fluke of a guitar. But it's the best Strat I've ever had, and I've had custom shops, and then that's the one that is my main Strat, and I've been using PRS guitars for years as well, which I love, and I still continue to use them. But the opportunity came up to have a signature guitar. We started a discussion, and I said, well, if I could have something that would be like my Japanese vintage Squire, that would be my ideal thing. So that's what we worked on together, and I had a guy called Stuart Robson from Sunbear Pickups custom designed some pickups for me. I like my Strats to be a little bit darker. I don't like overly bright guitars. I like a more full-bodied sound, especially for clean stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we got. I'm really, really pleased with it. Yeah.
But you also still use other instruments as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I see you with 335s often. And have you ever found a guitar that even though you really wanted to like, you turned out to not like at all? I mean, a style of guitar or something.
I've never really got on with Les Paul style guitars. I don't know whether it's the neck angle. I don't know. Or just the shape. I've got a Les Paul. Well, actually, my son's got a Les Paul now because he has it, and it's something that I have used on recordings, but live I don't think it's something It's just not my cup of tea, you know. I'd always go for I know they're completely different, but I'd always go for a 335 as opposed to a Les Paul.
Yeah. Different world though, but I see what you're saying. Now that you mentioned it, your son actually has a new song out.
He does, yeah.
He is a singer,
it's released,
songwriter.
He's a singer-songwriter. It's the situation. I've got two kids, my son Ollie and my daughter Libby, and they're both in music. But I tried to teach my son guitar for years. He just wasn't interested at all. I showed him a few chords, and I always sort of left the guitar around for him to pick up, and he never did. But the day, I remember being with him, the news came on, and it was about David Bowie passing away.
Right.
And that's when my son went, "Who's that?" And I explained, David Bowie. He'd never heard of him before. And then I said, well, actually, you can play one of his songs. And I picked up the guitars, and C to E is Space Oddity. It was almost like a switch went on. And, a couple of weeks later, he's wearing makeup. He's got, nail polish on and eyeliner at school, and he just became completely inspired by that artist, but also that era of music, So he's doing great. He's doing.
It's
really
great to see that some young people nowadays do get to appreciate these eras of music.
Yeah.
And not everything is lost in the option paralysis that the internet, along with all the other great things that it provides, the internet, and I'm sure if you put them on a scale, the good things are probably better than the bad things.
Yeah.
But it's good to see that young people listen to the past, because it's very important.
Yeah, and they take bits from that and bring it to now.
Exactly. Yes.
I've seen him working in the studio. He's very. He's like adamant. I don't want no auto-tune, no tuning. This is how I sung it. That's how it's going to be.
All right.
I'm like, good for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you've been in the studio many hours. You've been touring for so many years. You've got you got a few miles on the
clock.
Yes, on the clock.
Yeah.
Which situation do you think that you enjoy the most, being in the studio or being on the road?
So it's when I'm on the road, I want to get back in the studio, and when I'm in the studio, I want to get back out on the road.
Right.
That's how it works. Always has, and I love both. I love it. I love. I'm in the studio. When I'm at home, I'm always in my studio anyway. I'm always doing something like, I get a lot of sessions in, so I love that. Mm-hmm. But I love gigging as well. So, as long as I get to carry on doing both, I'm happy. That's great.
Let's talk a bit about influences.
Sure.
Obviously, you love Nile Rodgers.
Yeah.
You do love. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
What other people have influenced you heavily regarding your playing and the way you approach the instrument?
The session guys, really. People like Steve Lukather, Jay Graydon, Ray Parker Jr., Lee Rittenauer, Larry Carlton, UK players like Alan Murphy. It was always the parts that I liked. I liked the fact that there's parts that that stay out of the way of the vocal, the textures that they can build up, with guitar sounds. Mm-hmm. So all of those types of players, and people like Jimmy Page, and the layering that they do, and the clever techniques and things that they, not necessarily flash stuff. It's always about the simplest thing that I like. That's what I listen to. I listen to a lot of the old school players, and then new players that are around. Mark Lacheri, I think is great. I love Mark. Corey is amazing. Osnoy, they're everywhere. There's always great stuff to listen to. Yeah. I'm missing out loads, but.
Do you listen to much music now?
I listen to a lot of music at home, but usually very mellow stuff. I've got six or seven vinyls that I listen to in rotation. Mm-hmm. My wife and I will sit and put a record on, and I find that that's a different experience to having streaming stuff. So we play a lot of Hobeam. I'm a big fan of Bon Iver. A big fan of people, like things like Hall & Oates, Randy Crawford, Stevie. Mm-hmm. It's records it's music that was made for vinyl that I like the journey of vinyl. It's almost like if the song's not good enough, it shouldn't be on. We've only got so much space to put it on. It's all the keepers that are on the vinyl. Mm-hmm. So, I tend to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to come back to gear a bit,
sure,
if you're okay with it. And like I said, live in the studio, you like to have everything ready to not lose the moment of inspiration, and to be able to serve the process as best as you can.
Yeah.
On the road, you do use modeling to save your back and your neck from traveling and stuff like that, especially. Yeah. Because nowadays touring and carrying stuff with you is an expensive endeavor, should I call it. Do you still mess around with pedals at all? Because today I saw you having a great time. checking
Yeah,
out
I've
the
been
stuff.
trying. I mean, I use pedals, but it's all tools to me. So if I can get a great sound out of something, I like it. You know, but I'm not. I've got a bunch of stuff that I use at home, and it's just the stuff that I've had for years. So I mean, you know, I've been using the same overdrive, the main overdrive, for years because I like it. It just does what I want it to do. My main overdrive for probably 20 years has been a Noble's ODR1.
Right.
And then I have probably 3 other versions of that, you know, that kind of do that. You know, chorus pedals I've got like, it's just the stuff, the staples that do the thing. And then I like some weird stuff as well. But it's great to try out some new things, and I'm not someone who's constantly lusting after pedals.
Yeah.
Because the stuff I think I've just got into knowing what I've got and using it a lot. And that gets me there quicker than
Right.
searching for 15 other things. So if I come across something that I really like and I think I can use that instantly. I mean, like I tried some things out today. The what is it? The Funkify.
Yeah. From
And
Works. And you also like the Cyclone.
the Cyclone
phaser.
phaser.
Crazy
I
Tube
can
Circuits.
instantly know that is going to be used. I know when I'm going to use it. I've got other versions of it, but that is going to get me more options of what I've already got. So it's just stuff that inspires you to get something down. I work with some producers, right? And this is a little bit of a thing that I kind of have discovered myself. There's certain producers that I work with where they want to see you bringing in your gear. They want to see it all, right? That means they feel in their head, I'm getting value for money here.
Okay.
Even if you don't use it. And there's one guy that I work for, every time I come in, I will bring something new and like just have it there. And he's like, oh, what's that? Oh, I think the last time I had this, the big old HX stomp, the HX effect. Oh, what's that? Oh, this does all of this stuff. Oh, awesome. And it makes the session move.
Yeah.
Oh, great. And then there's some that don't want you to do that. Some just want you to come in with an amp and a guitar. And it's learning those little things to help things move and kind of get the creative juices flowing. So if you switch a pedal on, it might go, yeah, that's the sound. Working with JK, for example, I've had situations where he doesn't want the guitar to sound like a guitar sometimes.
Right.
You have to do some weird stuff. And we did a song a few years ago called Feels Just Like It Should. And it was based on a riff that he'd sung into a voice box. It was like he had a voice synthesizer. That's what the bass riff is based off. So the first thing I did was I doubled it, doing like a doubled kind of almost Led Zepp, tightly doubled with a crunchy sort of sound. But I could tell he was like a bit boring, you know. It's kind of obvious. So I had at the time I had this Line 6 HX Line 6 filter pedal. It was the purple one, and I picked up a guitar and I detuned it. So none of the strings were in tune. You'd hit it, it'd be like, ugh. But I got the pedal on my lap and I just started making noises and squelching, and we did 3 or 4 passes of just noise.
Yeah.
And he's going, yeah, great. He's getting really excited. And then what the producer then did is he went through and cut bits, and that track is made up of loads of sounds that just came out of something that was not musical. And I think that's quite a healthy thing to do sometimes.
Yeah. How were you able to reproduce this live, though?
I just learnt it and then had the sounds and learnt what I did. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we were talking about wah before, and you said that you use wah a lot in Jamiroquai.
Yeah.
And you sometimes need to stay away from it, doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Today, though, you sounded great on the...
Oh, well, I love wah. I love wah, but it's I do a lot of wah in Jamiroquai. So one tour I did, I actually had a thing we called it wah wah leg. I was standing on one leg for so long that my knee just started to give me some strain.
Right.
But yeah, I love wah. It's a great texture to have.
While you were checking out the wacko from Jambels today, though, I see that you've had some miles on the wah too. I mean, you know how to do. Actually, seeing you checking out stuff is very interesting because you need a few moments with the piece of gear to understand what it was actually built for. While you were checking out the gear, the guys that were here also observed this and said that he knows what he made it for. You know,
right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's, you know, I mean, the same thing when you plug into an amp. You immediately set, you kind of tune it to what you want it to sound like. I do think that's a thing. You're trying to go, where can I get the sound? Where's the sound that I want?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, I'm kind of quite quick to, it's great, but not for me. And I'm trying to get something that sounds like something I want to hear. And it's the same thing when you pick up a guitar or when you're standing next to an amp. You position your body to, you almost use your head as EQ sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do. I didn't know I was doing that. I'm just going, this is really cool.
Yeah, exactly. You managed to make the best out of it, or you managed to make them sound as close as you would like them to sound in order to make them fit to what you have in mind. And also I think that this is part of your experience because you've been playing for so long, and like you said, every little movement when you're trying out a new piece of gear is programmed to try and make the best out of it regarding your personal taste, though. And
there's a lot you can do with just the guitar.
Yeah.
There's so many options on a guitar where you pick where the volume is, where the tone is. You know, you can get so many tones that then when you add something onto it, you've got another little palette of sounds that you can get. Like that, the Cyclone phaser. There's so many things that, you know, I'm like, I can use that. That's great. I can do this, add some reverb to it. I can instantly hear where that's going to fit in with what I perhaps might want to do sometimes. And all I'm doing is trying to make it sound like something I remember that I loved from years ago, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. One thing has been very clear from the first time that I met you, that the fact that guitar for you has never stopped being exciting.
It's great.
And it's such a blessing to be around you and other musicians that have been doing this for a significant amount of time because you're still a young person. But the thing is that it never gets boring, right?
No.
And like you said, you can find interesting stuff in almost every session.
Yeah. There's always a good bit, you know. Even when you're playing trashy, you know, I remember sort of understanding. I watched an interview with Tim Pierce once where he was saying that he worked for certain producers where he had to dumb down what he did, almost become like he's a 17-year-old in a garage. And I think that's a really good thing to know. You don't have to sound amazing all the time. You know, you can make things sound a bit edgy. And I think that's something I'm constantly striving to get is how do I stop making everything sound nice?
Yeah.
You know? And how can I make it sound nice?
Yeah.
You know? Is a thing to have.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to detach yourself from your personality playing wise in order to fit the musical circumstance?
Yeah. I toured with, very early I learned this. I did a tour with an artist called Gary Newman. I don't know if you know Gary Newman. And at the time I was studying, like listening to Schofield and Scott Henderson and all of those amazing, juicy, amazing guitar players. And then I got this tour with Gary Newman, and it was an eye-opener for me that, you know, I don't think I played a third for the whole tour. It was all root and fifth. But there was an art to it. It wasn't easy, you know. You have to play it with conviction and make it count, you know. And I was like, oh, actually, that's an interesting thing of almost shutting off this harmonic information, but making this other thing really important.
Yeah.
And I realized that was almost like, there's not music I really listened to when I was, I didn't know much about it. But it was a great experience to realize that, that's also a thing that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's great to put yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, of course it is. I agree. Totally agree with you. And being a person who's so busy as a session guitarist, what are the aspects that you think keep the phone ringing? I mean, for young people watching this and with people that have aspirations to also become session musicians. And in order for you to become successful in this field, what are some of the things, apart from the playing stuff, which is, a no-brainer, what are some of the aspects of a person that make them keep getting called for gigs?
I'd say an important thing is, and I'm not saying that I have this, but is understanding how to read a room a little bit. And I've been in a room where you can see someone making the wrong decision, and it's almost like I mean, I've heard this spoken about many times, but I think it's very true. You have to have an ego, but you shouldn't let that ego get in the way of someone else's of the end product. You have to be able to come up with ideas, but not be upset if that idea is not chosen, and then build yourself up again. But just being open to things is a really good thing, and just try to be a decent try to be cool and not be a pain in the ass. The playing thing should be there anyway.
Yeah.
You should have that anyway, and also being able to say, do you know what, this isn't for me. I know someone's gonna do this better for you. I think that's a good thing to do, and it's just people skills. I think are very important. I'm not saying that I have that, but I think it is an important thing to have.
Your work speaks for itself. You do not have to say that because we already know it.
It's the people that you see that have been doing it a while. You can tell that they know how to be in the room and not be the most important person in the room.
Exactly.
I think that's a really important thing.
I know that you have produced a masterclass.
Yeah.
And also, you are here now.
Yeah.
Also to do a clinic and some lessons. As you also do guitar retreats.
Yeah.
Where people can come and hang out with you and learn from you and share, experiences and stuff. When you started doing this and when you got involved in the masterclass production, did you find that you discovered more things about you and the guitar that you hadn't seen before that?
Absolutely, yeah. There's, it's only when you're asked a question about something that you reverse engineer it and go, oh, I didn't know I did that. And if it can help, then it's a great thing. But yeah, I've learned loads of things about what I do playing wise that I didn't know I did. Yeah. I mean, one thing, I had a lot of people asking questions about funk playing. They would say, oh, my wrist is getting really stiff and tense, and I kind of know, and I'm rushing, tending to rush.
Right.
And I was like, okay, and I'd watch them, and they go, okay, I can see your hand is closed. Perhaps try opening your fingers. And I found that helped them. And it meant that their wrist, rather than going up and down, it meant that their wrist would twist.
Right.
And I didn't know I even did that. But it's only when you go, oh, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And that's, that comes from the stamina of doing it for, the last 45 minutes of a Jamiroquai set is pretty much 16ths all the way through. So, yeah, I think it's a great thing to be able to teach and go, oh, that's how I did it.
So it's an opportunity for you to observe yourself better. Right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And I want to go back to Gear One last time.
Okay.
Since you're starting your touring career up to now, how did you see it change? I mean, were you following all the trends that were around each time? Or did you pretty much, didn't see major changes apart from the fact that for some time you were using amps actually when touring?
Lots of changes. When I started out, I had amps, I was a big amp guy. You know, I've had it all. You know, Marshalls and Fenders, and you know, divided by 13 boutique things and boogies and stuff like that. Pedals for days. You know,
Yeah.
switching systems, and then I had a bit of an epiphany of, because the volume has gone down on stage for our band anyway, at least. I then switched to modelling, kind of out of necessity, because we're on in ears anyway. And then I actually found out, I realised that in the venues we're playing, like festivals, open air festivals and arenas, the consistency you get, or I got, with modelling was good. I found it a plus.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I'd love to be taking my amps around and playing at the volume I need to play at to get the tone I want, but it's not my, you know, I'm a side man. If it was my own gig, if it was the Rob Harris show, I'd be taking what I wanted. But when I'm working for someone, I have to do the gig, and I found that modelling helped. You know, and I've tried various ones. I'm currently using a Quad Cortex. It's brilliant for what I need.
Yeah.
And I also think there's something in the fact that it's coming down. I mean, my brain went, yeah, I've got my divided by 13, and it's got these valves, and it's doing this, and it sounds amazing, but it's still going down the capsule of an SM57.
Yes.
That if it's 1 millimeter wrong, it really affects my ears.
Yeah.
And I would always use a ribbon mic as well I prefer the sound of a ribbon. But every night it sounded different. Whereas with a modelling thing, it goes goes down your XLR, and at the end of the day, it's going to a digital desk anyway.
Yeah.
It just, for me, for the venues, it translates better. If I'm playing in a small club, I want a deluxe, I want an amp. I want that feeling. But on a big stage, I want the consistency.
Yeah, consistency is definitely one of the things that make us go towards modeling, apart from the, compact aspect of it. Okay, couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Let's wrap this up after this. I could be hanging out with you for hours, but first of all, what's up next? Like your immediate, in the immediate future, what should we expect for you?
We're currently working on a new Jamiroquai album. It's been some time. We haven't done anything for a while. Got COVID out the way and all that rubbish. So we're looking forward to doing some gigs next year in 2025. The album's going really well so far, but these things can take time with this band. And but yeah, what's happening feels great so far. Other things that I'm doing, I'm going away to do a week of teaching in Tuscany, and just gigs, just loads. I mean, I'm so lucky. I've got a little residency that I do in London where I get to go up and play most Thursdays with my pals. I love it, and just doing sessions at home. Yeah, keeping busy.
And what would you say to your younger self today? If you were starting, but you had the opportunity to speak with you now, what advice would you give you?
Start writing a bit more earlier. Get involved in writing. I think I love writing music. I love composition. And I never did it when I was early days. I just wanted to be the guitar player. But I think writing is a good thing to be involved in. Apart from that, I wouldn't change a thing.
Right.
Make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. And just say yes to everything. I did that anyway. But yeah, that's anyone out there listening or watching. You can be the guy that's on the gig, or you can be the guy that's not on the gig. Guy or girl that's on the gig. Don't. Try to get yourself in situations where you're going to meet people and do it the right way. Don't be networky.
Yes.
Just do it naturally, but be in the room,
Yeah.
I think it's important. And play. Just play with as many people as you can.
Yeah. Rob, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikos.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you for hanging out with us for this interview for Premier Guitar. And I really appreciate you. And it's great to meet you.
Likewise. Great.
Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye.